Welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. For years, I improvised a new bedtime story for my children every night. Now, we would like to share the recordings of the best of those stories with you. I hope you enjoy my Stories for Wonderful Children.
There were two little girls named Rebecca and Diana, and they were bored. It was a Saturday and they did not have school, but they were still in school. It was almost summer, but not quite yet, and it was a weekend, and they wanted something fun to do. And frequently they had visits from their Aunt Amy, and Aunt Amy sometimes brought a fun surprise. In the past, they had done sun catchers and they had done sand art. Well, as they were sitting there at the table. They were sitting there with their resting their chins on their hands, and they were just staring at each other. And Rebecca was saying, "What do you want to do, Diana?" And Diana was saying, "I don't know, Rebecca. What do you want to do?" And Rebecca was saying, "I don't know, Diana. What do you want to do?" And Diana was saying, "I don't know, Rebecca, what do you want to do?" And Rebecca was saying, "I don't know, Diana." And their mommy and daddy were sort of looking at each other and rolling their eyes. And just about that time, when Diana was just saying, "I don't know, Rebecca," and there was a ding dong, and they both sat up and they said, "The doorbell!" And they went running for the front door. And they were about to open the door, but then they remembered that they weren't supposed to unless the mommy or daddy was with them. Fortunately, mommy came up right at that time because she wanted to know who was at the door also. And she opened the door, and there was a delivery man there. And he said, "I have a package. Will you sign for it?" And Rebecca's mommy signed for it. And she got the package. She read the front. It said, "To Rebecca and Diana." And the return address said Aunt Amy. And Rebecca and Diana said, "Ah." And they said, "It's something from Aunt Amy. What could it be?" They wondered. Sometimes Grandma sent them chewing gum, but they had never really gotten a package from Aunt Amy. They wondered what it was. And Diana said, "Let's call her." And so they dashed into the computer and they pressed the button to call Aunt Amy. And she came on the screen of the computer, and they said, "What'd you send us, Aunt Amy?" And she said, "Well, open it." And they said, "Oh." And they got the package, and they sat in front of the computer so she could see them, and they opened it. And inside were two packages of sidewalk chalk. And they said, "Sidewalk chalk, yes!" And Aunt Amy said, "Look, it's not just sidewalk chalk, it's special sidewalk chalk." And they looked at it, and the packages did indeed say special sidewalk chalk. And they said, "What's special about it?" And she said, "You'll have to try it out and go see." So they went out onto their back porch, and they took the sidewalk chalk with them. And they thought about what they wanted to draw. And Rebecca said that she was going over to the edge of the porch. She was going to draw a racetrack. And so she drew a big racetrack, and she was going to draw an oval. And then she thought about her favorite racetrack in Mario Kart, Mushroom Gorge. And so she drew a Mushroom Gorge racetrack with mushrooms that the cars could bounce off of, and turns, and bridges to cross. And after she'd finished drawing the whole thing, she looked at it, and she decided that it didn't look quite right, and she wanted to add something else. Well, while she was working on that, Diana was thinking about what she wanted to draw. And it was after lunchtime, and it was a late May day, and it was starting to get pretty hot. And Diana decided that she was going to draw a little river because she liked imagining having a river to dip her feet into to keep them cool. And as she was working on the river, she heard Rebecca say, "Diana, look!" And Diana came over where Rebecca had drawn little Mario Karts for her Mushroom Gorge racetrack. And as soon as she had finished 4 Mario Karts, the little chalk drawings of the Mario Karts had started to race around the little chalk Mushroom Gorge track. They could see them jumping over mushrooms and everything. And Diana said, "That is cool." And Rebecca said, "I'm going to watch them go." And she cheered for one. She picked Princess Peach and she followed her all the way around the track cheering for her. And when Princess Peach won, she waved up at Rebecca. While Rebecca was doing that, Diana was working on her river. And she had the river
If I
pretty
really
much
did
drawn
that, I would have cheered for Rosalina.
with lily pads and a waterfall and a pond at the end with beavers that had built a dam. And as she was putting the finishing touches on the beaver dam, Diana looked carefully and she saw that the water, the blue chalk she had drawn for the water, was actually flowing in the picture. It was moving, and the water was coming down off the waterfalls, and she could see little fish swimming, and it looked so real that she put her feet in it, and it was funny. It didn't feel under her feet. It didn't feel like a warm concrete with chalk on it. It felt like cool water under her feet. And she looked down. Her feet weren't getting wet, but they felt like they were. She said, "Becca, come try this." And Becca came over, took her shoes and socks off, and she stepped onto the picture of the chalk river, and she said, "Oh, it feels just like having her feet in cool water." Well, then they were trying to think of what to draw next when Mommy came over and let Peanut, their shark/dog/manatee, outside in the back. And Peanut came outside and she was running around and she kept trying to steal the chalk. And she clearly needed something to play with. But the girls wanted to draw. They didn't want to chase her right that second, although chasing her was a lot of fun. And so they said, "Hey, let's draw a squirrel for Peanut to chase." And so they did. They bent down and they got out their chalk. And they began to draw a squirrel with big bushy tail, square, and they made it a fat squirrel so that Peanut would really want to chase it. And as soon as they got done, the chalk squirrel started flipping its tail, and Peanut saw it and came running over, and the chalk squirrel saw it and started running, but it was chalk, and so it couldn't get off the back patio, so it just raced around in big circles, and Peanut raced after it full speed, round and round and round and round the patio. She was going so fast that it made the girls dizzy just to look at her. And after going around the patio in a circle like 15 or 20 times, it had made Peanut a little dizzy too, because she just started to sort of wobble a little bit, and then she laid down and just kind of panted for a minute. And the girls decided that that was hilarious. But the chalk squirrel was still running around and around and around and around and around, and they had to do something to get rid of it. And so they drew a chalk peanut to catch it. And the chalk peanut chased the chalk squirrel. And then the chalk peanut got so close that the chalk squirrel leaped off the patio and just disappeared in a little tiny poof of chalk dust off the edge of the concrete. And then the chalk peanut went after and also disappeared into a little tiny poof of chalk dust off the edge of the concrete. And the girls looked at each other with big eyes, and Peanut looked at them with big eyes, and they shrugged. Then they heard a noise which made them very sad, because they were having such a good time. They heard a sound of thunder, and they saw the first drops of rain, and they said, "Oh, we've got to get our special chalk inside." And so they took the special chalk inside, and since they couldn't go outside, they called Aunt Amy back on the computer to tell her how much they liked the special chalk that she had sent them. And she was glad to hear that they had such a good time with her gift. And that's the end.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's show, but questions and running commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was created by Brandon Thompson, and our wonderful logo was designed by Silas Swindelin. If you know someone who might enjoy the show, please tell them about it. Do you want more stories? You can now subscribe to the show and help pick a new story for me to tell every month. The show's website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.com. Until next time, I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.